Hi, Sion, a fitter. I'm here with my daughter Jessica, and we were recently having a conversation about the aging parent, and we kind of came up with some questions that I think that are important because I was telling her, I think some people need awareness around the aging parent, and usually we don't start thinking about these things until they happen, and then we have to make hasty decisions, and they're not usually the best decisions, but because we're in this crisis, we kind of like have to take what's available. So we just kind of formulated some questions to kind of get you guys thinking about some conversations you need to have with your parents as they age, especially if they're what 60 plus. What do you think?
Yeah, like either nearing retirement or close to retirement. So most people start to think about retiring around in their 60s, with the goal of retiring around 65, 70, although we know some people continue to work well after that. So just some things to start to think about and to enter into the conversation. Obviously, these won't be all the questions and all the in-depth and things like that, but kind of where do you start?
Okay, so one of the questions that Jessica thought was really good was, do you know your parents' health status?
Yeah.
Meaning, you want to elaborate on that, Jessica?
Yeah, so having been gone to the doctor recently and things like that, just knowing, when was your parents' last physical? Have they shared like their lab results? So you kind of get the basis of where they are. Like, do they have high blood pressure, cholesterol levels, and things like that? Also, knowing what medications they're on, just starting to build that awareness, right? So hopefully your parents are in good health, but just starting to have that conversation so you're knowledgeable, and then maybe prevent some surprises in the future. Like she was saying, that you're often in that situation where you need to know and you've never known before. This is like a good entry point.
I think that's a really good question because we just kind of assume that we know what's going on with our parents, but and it's kind of hard for parents to start to relinquish the information to their kids because usually it's the parent watching after the kids, and now as they age, the tables kind of turn, and now the kids have to be a little bit more mindful about what's going on with their parents because you don't want to get in that bad situation. Another question we were discussing earlier, what are their long-term goals?
Yeah, so again, these are just entry-level conversation starters, right? So just asking them, in the next 5 to 10 years, where do they see themselves, right? Like, what are they trying to do? Like, some questions to kind of think about are like, where do they want to live? Like, do they have plans to relocate? Do they currently live close to you and they thinking about moving away, maybe somewhere warmer? Do they live far away and they want to be closer to you? But just like, what do they see? Like, how involved, if they have grandkids, how involved do they want to be? Do they have plans to travel? Are there new things, that they're interested in pursuing, right? Like, just because you're older, life doesn't stop, right? People can start new careers. I've had people say, oh yeah, I got a little part-time job and I'm doing, X, Y, Z. And asking them, what are they trying to do, right? Because again, you want to make sure you're giving them agency in their life, and you want to partner with them on that, right? You want to help them live out their dreams and goals for the rest of their life.
Yeah, so just to add to what she was saying about asking your parents what they want to do, a lot of times what happens is you get in a crisis and then the kids usually start making decisions based on their convenience, and I think that the aging parent should have some say so in what they might want to do. So as they get older, don't disregard them, because that's really not good for their mental health, because especially if you have one of those parents that's super independent, like don't take that away from them. So even though what might be convenient for you, I think you still, as they age, you just got to find a happy medium, especially if they have all their faculties and they kind of know what they want to do. So just remember that, because I want to be considered
Yeah.
When they start making decisions for me.
Right.
Okay.
And
Okay.
there is a way, right? So I have a friend and her mom is in her 90s and she lives by herself because that's what she wants to do. I'm sure there was some trepidation around that and things like that, but you can still, there's a way to honor your parents' wishes in a way that best works for everybody. So having a low stakes conversation and having that in mind, I think it sets up people for success, and that's our whole goal, is to set you up for success.
Yeah. So, we probably need to have that conversation sooner than later. I mean, just, oh, you know what? Okay. So what are their plans for long-term care? No matter what you think, all going in that direction, what does it look like, and what are your options?
And this is a really hard question. So the question is like, what are their plans for long-term care? And just for background purposes, for the last kind of 8 years, I've studied long-term care, and I've visited a lot of nursing homes across the country, and also been interacting with training direct care staff, people who come into your activities and kind of help you live inside your home independently. And it's something that you have to actually be really proactive about. And so there are a lot of, I encourage people who have aging parents and are starting to think about it, even just to start to research, like, what are the options out there, right, for yourself, and even encourage your parents they're in that situation to do that. Thinking about what's available in your area, like what are the types of facilities, or assisted living, nursing homes, continuing care retirement communities, senior apartments. There are just so many different options. So what does that look like? And then, like, the overarching question to ask is, where do people want to age? So we talked about, like, what are their goals, where do people want to live, and things like that. But, like, overall, God willing, people are able to do so. Where do they want to age? And I think one of the biggest things that we've seen, especially during COVID, is people want to age in their home. They want to age in their community. They want to age surrounded by friends and family and things like that. And what does it take to do that? So there's just a lot of things to consider. And I've talked to a lot of caregivers, family caregivers, who are in that situation. Again, being in a situation where you have to make a decision right now, you need it. It's a immediate need, and feeling overwhelmed and feeling unprepared. And so just a little bit of educating you can do for yourself and for your family to just know what's out there will make it easier when you get to that point, if you get to that point. So just in general, I encourage people to just kind of survey the landscape, right? Like, what's out there. I'm sure I drive outside. When I drive to the gym, I pass by a few retirement communities. What is that? What does that take? Because also, just a note, it is expensive. So, and then, my mom says she's working at a retirement community, and I looked it up, and their wait list is like at least 7 to 10 years. So that means that people who are living there planned almost 10 years in advance, which is wild. So and that's not the case for everything, but just think about, like, the best facilities are going to have a wait list because it is something in short supply, and so many people are aging, and it's such a high need. So be aware of that if you want the best, you're probably going to need a plan, probably now, right? Like, I'm already thinking, like, dang, I need to have my timeline of, like, when I'm 60, I need to have put my name somewhere because if I want access to that. So again, just things to think about. This is just an entry level conversation, just to start to kind of put those ideas in your head. So when you get to that point, if you get to that point, you feel a little bit more educated and aware, and be like, okay, I know a little bit, right?
For the future.
Absolutely.
For our parents.
And for ourselves.
Yeah. I mean,
so these conversations apply to your parents, but also conversations for yourself, and if you have kids, right, starting to, initiate that conversation for them to be able to take care of you, because we're living in that era where people are taking care of their parent, you're a parent to kids, so it all applies. But what I have learned just being in the field is that, yes, it is something that we need to be more proactive, right? Like, you go into these communities, I interact with a lot of people that are older, and you're like having those conversations, you're like, wow, right? Like, I never thought about it like that, or yeah, like what does that look like for me? What does that look like for my family members? Yeah, because we're all aging, and it's sometimes a hard pill to swallow. But you know, if we set ourselves for success, you know, we can have a really happy ending no matter what. So
yeah, that is true. So, and you know, and we're just not speaking, like she just said, we're not just speaking about like aging facilities. We're also talking about you're caring for a parent, you know, or because it may be a situation where you can move your parent into your home or be close to them. So, still, what does that look like, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and I think we'll continue this series because, again, there are plenty of questions, and I'm thinking about all the other questions that you can start to ask for yourself, for your parents, because, yeah, there's a lot of things that you can consider. Because I'm even thinking about, like, if somebody wants to age in place, a simple question is, like, stairs. How many stairs do you have in your house?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And
so, we don't want to get into that because I don't want to make this video too long, but those things to think about. Like right now, you're like, oh, going up and down the stairs, that's fine. But seeing different situations where you're like, oh, wow.
That's a lot.
That's a lot versus somebody who's kind of moved in, you know, a single, you know, one floor house and it's more accessible. They have less stairs. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is a better situation for, you know, aging in place, or if you have mobility issues or you're recovering from surgery and things like that.
We won't elaborate on that. We
kind of already did, but we'll bring out some more questions that you can start to ask.
Right. All right. I want to thank you, and remember, any day is a good day for a great day. All right. Bye-bye.